Here we go. So first off, if you aren't familiar with who I am or the Goalie Guild, my name is Justin Goldman. I'm the Director of Athletic Partnerships for another nonprofit foundation called MindSpark Learning. And MindSpark Learning is a worldwide leader in professional development for educators and now as well with coaches. We're based in Lakewood, Colorado. I'm also the founder and owner of the Goalie Guild, obviously. I'm the goalie coach in chief for the Rocky Mountain District for USA Hockey, and also an emergency backup goaltender for the Colorado Avalanche. This presentation is broken into two parts. The first part is the learning part, which again is a little bit of the brain science behind the strategies that I incorporate when it comes to mentoring and teaching and guiding goalies. And then the second part is the actual goaltending side, which is going to be more fun for you goalies out there. And that's where it's going to be a little bit more interactive. So my goal is to try and get through this first part a little bit quicker, just so we can get to the fun stuff. And for me, as an educator and as a passionate goalie, I've spent the better part of 10, 12 years now going on this incredible learning journey on all different types of models of goalie development. I've traveled overseas to Finland and Sweden. I spent a lot of time in Canada, and one of my biggest joys in life is just learning from others that speak different languages or live in different cultures, because the more analogous learning you can do, the more you can learn from different coaches and different styles and different goalies, the more perspective it brings you. And throughout this journey, you guys might be familiar with these titles. These are 3 of the 5 books that I've written over the past 7 years. They're readily available on Amazon, and a lot of the things that I've learned from pro goalies, pro goalie coaches, directors in other countries are all kind of encapsulated in these books. And like I said, they're readily available on Amazon. They're, I think, $20 each. And so if you're looking to learn more about what I've gone through in my journey, or you want to lean on, especially for embracing the grind, I feel is a really good read right now, just because of what we're all going through emotionally and physically. These are great resources for goalies of any age. A lot of what I'm going to be teaching today and discussing with you guys stems from a project that I worked on with a doctor by the name of Jim Stevens. He's an education expert of the highest degree, and he's also a goalie coach. He has 2 sons that play goalies. So we kind of came together a couple of years ago at the University of Denver and realized that there was so much more that goalie coaches and parents and goalies themselves can be doing to really improve the learning that's taking place on the ice and off the ice on a daily basis. So this presentation kind of encapsulates or captures the essence of what this project that we did together 2 years ago. It's called Brain Science Learning and Goalie Development. And again, if you're interested in any of these resources, you can reach out to me afterwards. I'll answer any questions I possibly can for you guys. So kind of 2 or 3 of the key facts that came out of this study that we did with Dr. Jim Stevens is as follows. The first one is pretty, I think, obvious, but it's always good to kind of reinforce and restate. And this fact was summed up perfectly by a goalie coach that I hold in very high regard. His name is Thomas Magnusson, and Thomas Magnusson is the director of goalie development for the entire country of Sweden. He's very iconic in Sweden. He's kind of like the Mitch Korn of the United States. He's been around for probably close to 30 years. He's had a massive positive impact on a lot of the pro Swedish goalies that you see playing in North America and the NHL right now. And he's widely regarded as establishing the goalie development curriculum for the country of Sweden, and a lot of other countries have adopted and adapted his teachings and his curriculum to help shape their national models as well. And during my learning journey, he came up with one quote that was just fantastic that I thought encapsulated a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. And that is, there are as many styles as there are goalies, which really just means we're all unique in the way that we perform, the way that we strategize, the tactics that we use when we're in the crease, and also how we learn. The other fact that came out of this study is that peak performance, so when we get into that flow state and everything's working really well and we're playing at our best, that and higher learning stems from a deeper understanding of yourself. So the more you know who you are as an athlete, as a competitor, as a human being, the more you're going to be able to perform at that high level on a consistent basis. And that's really the goal for any athlete, obviously for goalies as well. And so at the end of this study, what I really learned was that it really changed my whole perspective on goalie development as a whole and how I work with goalies at any age. I don't necessarily just see goalies as athletes. I see them as learners. And every time you're on the ice, it's an opportunity to learn something new about the position, something new about yourself, something new about your teammates, your coaches, anyone that you interact with on a daily basis. So kind of just making that little shift of a mindset from, just seeing goalies as athletes, as these machines. No, we want to kind of look at them as learners and figure out ways to help them increase the learning that's taking place while they're on the ice. So what really came out of this, again, besides these key facts, was this goalie education model that we call the learner-centered model. And if there's anyone out there listening, parents or coaches that have an education background, you might be familiar with this term. It's one that's used very often, and it's one that I hope we see more of as time goes on in sports, especially in youth goalie development. So what is the learner-centered model? The learner-centered model is just like you see right here. All components are designed for the learning experience to be adaptable to the needs and potential of each learner, and it supports the highest possible outcomes for each and every learner. For our point of discussion here, we're just going to replace learner with goalie, right? So now when we reread this, all components are designed for the learning experience to be adaptable to the needs and potential of each goalie, right? Pretty straightforward. But there also are a couple of other components that go into the learner-centered model. And the first one is learner agency. An agency just recognizes goalies as active participants in their own learning, and it engages them in the design of their experiences. So most goalie coaches are doing this on a pretty regular basis. They're customizing and they're personalizing the teaching to the goalie that they're working with. We understand that not one size fits all, and every goalie is unique and every goalie is a unique learner. So our role as goalie coaches and as mentors is to be able to craft and mold and shape the learning experience and the training experience and the drills that we do to really fit the needs of each individual goalie. But agency also says that the goalies themselves will take an active role in the learning that takes place. So coaches, we want to lean on the goalies and give them some autonomy and give them the opportunity to actually give feedback on what drills they would like to work on. How are they seeing things that are unfolding in the crease, and how can they design better training experiences for what they need to, get the most out of that opportunity. The other part is personalization, which again is very obvious for most goalie coaches and goalies out there. It acknowledges that different goalies face different challenges to learning. And again, coaches have to be adaptable, and the goalies themselves have to be adaptable to be able to shift that training session or shift those drills to meet those needs. And most importantly, one of the biggest keys for learner-centered model is the social emotional component, okay? At MindSpark Learning, we call that social emotional learning, or otherwise known as SEL. And it just states that learning is rooted in meaningful relationships with qualified adults and community members and is grounded in social interaction. So the relationships that we build with the goalies that we work with and the relationships we have with our coaches are of utmost importance. And the more you can lean on a coach, not just for the technical expertise and that type of advice, but for the social and emotional growth as well, and having that friendship and being able to open up about any mental or cognitive issues you're having or anything that you're going through that's affecting your play emotionally, that's extremely important in this learner-centered model. All right, so I was able to rip through Act 1 pretty fast, and now it gets to the good stuff, which is the goaltending act. And we're only 10 minutes in, so I feel like I'm doing good on time. Okay, so I want to circle back. We call this spiraling back, okay? And what was the fact from the first act? Peak performance stems from a deeper understanding of yourself. So at the highest levels, no matter what type of athlete you are, what sport you're playing, athletes are constantly asking themselves these three questions. Who am I? How do I do certain things? How do I get better? How do I learn this new technology? How do I master this new skill? And why do I do the things that I do? And I feel like that question is one that we get from a lot of goalies these days, which is great because it shows that they have a little bit more self-awareness. Is like, why is a coach asking me to do this? Why are we doing these drills at this time? Why is coach forcing me to do skating drills? You know, all those questions that we ask, that's just a form of self-reflection, and it's good to ask those questions all the time. So one of the ways that I help goalies kind of answer these questions is through a project called the Periodic Table of Goaltending Elements. And some of you guys may have seen this before. It's been around for a few years. I actually just recently made the whole book project free for goalies to download on our website. And it comes with this, like, you can download this book. It's a PDF. It's got some exercises in the back. But basically what this project is aimed at doing is breaking down all of the technical, mental, and tactical elements of goaltending into this nice and neat periodic table to help goalies understand that there's a lot of different ways you can craft your goaltending style. There's a lot of different skills that you can lean on, and there's an infinite number of ways that you can kind of mold your elements together to make a unique identity for yourself. So all these different elements come into play, and everyone's going to have a different hierarchy of elements. Everyone's going to lean on certain skills more than others. But the fact remains that these are the elements that you can work with, and how you craft your skills and how you craft your identity is completely unique, as well as it being a good educational resource. So if anyone wants to download it, it's free. It'll kill some time while we're all in self-quarantine. So now is when I want to start getting a little bit interactive, and I'm not going to unmute anyone just yet. I want you to just think about this on your own and maybe write it down for a couple minutes. But I want to ask the question, like, what skills out of all the skills out there, it can be the physical skills like skating and, adaptive skating. It could be reflexes. It could be mental skills like concentration or focus. Anything in the lexicon of goaltending. What skills do you value most? Okay, so I just want you guys to think and reflect on that for 1 or 2 minutes. Coaches, you can do the same thing. What coaching skills do you value most? Okay, so go ahead and take a minute to write that down. So usually when I give these presentations, it's obviously, at goalie camps. And a lot of the responses that I get are reading the play is one that's really popular. Footwork is another one. One that I really like to hear from goalies is bouncing back after giving up a goal. That's most definitely a skill. But you can see the 4 categories here, right? And I just try and challenge goalies and coaches to really think a little bit outside the box. So the low-hanging fruit is like your really obvious physical skills like athleticism and skating and all the stuff I've already mentioned. But it's always like I'm always listening to hear who's got a creative answer, who's got a slightly different answer. Okay? So hopefully you had a chance to just write down 1 or 2 skills that you value the most. Everyone's going to have different answers, and that's totally fine. But here's where I'm going to start to challenge you guys a little bit, okay? How about a skill like preparation, okay? Some goalies, maybe you thought about this, maybe you didn't. But when we look at what Braden Holtby went through in the 2018 or was it 2017 Stanley Cup Finals, this video was really, really popular. It went viral, and it brought a lot of attention to the goaltending position. His pregame routine and what he goes through to get prepared to actually get on the ice. We all know that goalies at the highest level have really, really tight, solid, consistent routines before the game, okay? That's super important to have, all right? So we know that preparation is most definitely a skill. And as you continue to develop and get older and the competition gets higher and higher, being able to have that solid preparation component to your game is going to be extremely important. Okay. So preparation, absolutely going to be a pretty important skill for all goalies. Okay. Maybe we don't necessarily think about resilience as a skill, But man, what did Alex Ovechkin have to go through in his career to be able to lift the Stanley Cup? Right? Like, that is one resilient creature right there. It doesn't matter if you're, on the Sidney Crosby side or the Alex Ovechkin side. You have to respect the resiliency and his ability to embrace the grind and all of the things that he's went through throughout his entire career to finally get to that point where he got to lift the Stanley Cup. And that was an amazing moment, right? I think everyone felt great for him because they know the hard work and the perseverance and the resilience that he had developed as a skill throughout his entire life. And he finally got to achieve the goal that we all hope to dream of accomplishing someday. Right? So a couple of other skills that, again, maybe you don't necessarily think about at the top of your head, but are truly extremely important when it comes to, evolving into the best version of yourself. But finally, and the one that's really the key component of this whole presentation, is creativity. Okay. Again, this is one that I almost never hear when I give the presentation live. And it's great because that's the key focus of this whole learning experience and this whole presentation, is that creativity, I believe very strongly, is one of the most important skills a goalie can have. Okay. And if you're not too sure exactly what creativity is, that's totally fine. Okay. Because it's tough, because when it comes to a term like creativity, most people think just artistically, like artistic talent, drawing, dancing, singing, whatever the case may be, but there's so much more to it. Okay. And if I can define creativity for you as a goaltender, then I can teach it. And if I can teach it, it's something that can be learned. And if you can learn it, it becomes a skill. And that's what we want to accomplish today. I just want to be able to define exactly what creativity is for a goalie, and then give you the opportunity to go out and flex those creative muscles. And this is something that I feel is really important right now. While we don't have access to the ice, our daily normal routines have been ripped out from underneath us. And now we've got to find ways to stay sharp, stay focused, stay positive, without the access to the training and the ice that we're used to having. Okay. So what I would like for you guys to do is to actually take a minute to write down what you see right here. This is the true definition of creativity from the center of innovation and education. Okay. So I'm going to read it out, and then I'm going to give you guys a minute to write this down, because if you write it down on a sheet of paper, it's going to be easier for you to remember it and actually absorb that information. Okay. And you can replace the second word, individuals, with goalie. Okay. So a goalie's ability to personally interpret experiences, imagine and play with new possibilities, and create approaches that are novel, useful, and valued by the world around them. Okay. So again, I'm going to give you a minute to write that down. We're 20 minutes into the presentation, so we're still good on time. And as you're writing this down, I just want you to reflect on ways that you're creative as a goaltender. Okay. And you can really split this definition up into 3 parts. Okay. The first part is your ability as a goalie to personally interpret experiences. So if you think about what we're doing in the crease, every time we're playing a game or we're in a practice, we see the play unfold before us. Okay. And we're interpreting that experience, and we're trying to anticipate what's going to happen next. So in our minds, subconsciously or maybe consciously, we're connecting the dots, we're deciphering patterns, we're reading patterns. Okay, we're trying to understand the flow of the game, the pace of the game. Okay, player tendencies, shooter tendencies. All right, and we're just trying to anticipate and put ourselves in the best position possible to be prepared for when the shot comes. And the second part of this definition is an individual's ability to imagine and play with new possibilities. And the low-hanging fruit here, the one that I always lean on when I'm giving this presentation live, is like, think about all the things that we do to modify our gear and tweak our gear. Okay, so everything from the professor strap to your toe laces to your Velcro strapping, how you wear your mask, how you break in your glove. Like, we are constantly, as goalies, imagining and playing with new possibilities, trying to find ways to make our gear work better, slide better, catch better. Stick grips are another really good one. Like, we see Henrik Lundqvist, Michael Hutchison, pretty much every goalie's got a really unique stick grip now, or the way they tape their stick. Like, these are all ways that goalies are being creative on a daily basis. And then the last one is creating approaches that are novel, useful, and valued by the world around them. Okay? So same sort of thing, whether it's coming up with new training products for goalies like the catch ball, or maybe it's what Finn Goalie did with the anchor pegs. Okay, that was an amazingly creative new product that solved the issue of the really crappy old steel pegs that would always slip off. Okay. So in what ways are you creative as a goalie when it comes to, altering or coming up with new approaches to the way that you stop pucks, or the way that you train, the way that you develop? All right. So that is, again, the technical definition of creativity from the Center of Innovation and Education. I hope you guys all got a chance to write it down and reflect on that a little bit. So I went through a couple of really obvious ways that goalies are creative on a daily basis, which again kind of reinforces the fact that this is a skill that you already have, but by being able to define it, okay, I can teach it to you. And by being able to teach it to you, you can take it, okay, and you can learn from it, and you can start to use it, and you can start to lean on it, okay, to help you become more self-aware, which is just going to improve and drive your performance up. It's also going to make you more unique, which goalie coaches love to see. Well, what are some other ways that goalies can be creative? Okay. I posted this photo. I know a couple of slides ago, it was Dominik Hasek, right? Maybe like the most iconic creative goalie out there. But another one that I love to use when I'm talking about creativity is Marc-Andre Fleury. Okay. And a couple of other ways that goalies can be really, really creative is through these three skills right here on the left side. Adaptability, okay? Being adaptable means being able to adjust, bounce back, and thrive in a constantly changing environment. That's taking place right now. Our environments have changed so drastically and so severely in the past week that we all, as goalies and goalie coaches and goalie parents, have to find ways to adapt and continue that learning process on a daily basis. Resourcefulness. Okay, this is one that I have to lean on all the time, because as a 37-year-old emergency backup goalie for the Avalanche, like, I've got almost 2 full-time jobs. I do not have access to ice every day, but I've got to keep my skills sharp. So I have to be extremely resourceful with what I have and make the most with the limited ice time that I do get. So that's just the ability to use our tools, our gear, our trainings, all this stuff that we use to get better, and our time in unique, valuable, and effective ways. All right. Again, I feel like everyone right now in the goalie community is doing that right now. We're trying to be resourceful. Goalie coaches are sharing free drills online. We're all just trying to come together to make sure that goalies are getting what they need without their, normal routine taking place. And then the last one, and maybe the most important, is coachability. Okay. So as an athlete, as a young goalie, your ability to learn, listen, and remain open-minded to criticism or feedback from others. Okay, if you have a closed mind and a coach is trying to give you some advice or some feedback and you're brushing it off, that is going to have a massive impact on your growth moving forward, both mentally and physically and emotionally as well. Okay, so whether you agree with your goalie coach or not, or you're having a bad day or not, that skill of being able to listen and make eye contact and have respect for the goalie coach or the authority that's giving you advice, whether you think it's good advice or not, is besides the point. You got to show that level of respect, and you have to keep an open mind. Okay. All right. So that was a lot of brain science of human creativity. These are things that kind of cross over all sorts of different paradigms, whether it's goaltending, it's being a brain surgeon, it's being a teacher, whatever the case may be. Those things that I just went through, those are kind of the staples when it comes to, the psychology of creativity. Okay. And what researchers are finding, I had this really awesome, like 5-minute video, but for time purposes, I took it out. But basically what it is it's a couple of researchers talking about how creativity, this skill that I've just been talking about, like teaching you guys about, is linked to the flow state. Okay. And there's a lot of amazing books out there about flow state that you can read, and peak performance in athletes. And you will learn just how a lot of coaches and a lot of goalies and a lot of high level athletes are extremely creative because they're problem solving in the moment. They're finding ways to create solutions to issues that they have, whether it's on the training level side of things or it's in the moment during a game. So creativity is actually linked to flow state. And as goalies, the more creative you are, the better chance you have to kind of find that sweet spot when you're performing and just be able to react instinctually to plays that are unfolding in front of you. And a lot of conversations that goalie coaches have with goalies, and I've had a lot this past week, is just talking about how, like, nothing is really structured in a game. Things fall apart all the time. Plays get broken up. Pucks are bouncing off of everyone, everywhere, all the time. Pucks don't always fly in straight lines. They wobble, they float, they dip, they do all kinds of crazy things. And the game of hockey, especially right now, if you watch, high level hockey, college, pro, whatever, there's so much traffic and there's so many bodies crossing your path that you rarely ever get to set up and square up to a shot cleanly. Like, you are constantly battling for space. You're trying to look around bodies. You're trying to adjust your positioning and make these micro movements and still get yourself set, square, and ready. But rarely is it ever clean. The game is going to put you in bad situations more often than not, whether it's on your post in the RVH and you over rotate, or a player's going on a hard wraparound and he pulls you out of your position, and then you've got to try and get back and square and seal that post with your shoulder. Like, the game puts you in bad situations, and it's our job as goalies to be able to adapt to that in the moment and be creative and find ways to get yourself behind that puck. Okay. So again, the brain chemistry is taking place. Creativity is happening at all times. It's a skill that maybe you didn't know you really had at a high level, but I feel like all the great goalies in the NHL, they have this unbelievable ability to be creative and dynamic, and basically, let's just call it unpredictability. Again, if you kind of follow the guys at In Goal Magazine, or you read Kevin Woodley's articles on NHL.com, I think he had a great one a couple of weeks ago about Robin Lehner making the half butterfly saves, the one knee up, and just how it throws shooters off because it's a little bit unpredictable. And that's creativity in a nutshell. He's not just defaulting to your traditional butterfly, compact butterfly, like you see most goalies do. What you're seeing is, some unpredictability in the save selections that goalies are starting to utilize at the highest levels. Okay. And again, if you're looking for like the authority on flow state, you're interested in this topic, you want to learn more about how can I become, better suited to be in the flow state more often, because for goalies, like, that's what we love. We love that feeling when everything is clicking. Our rhythm and timing is on point. The reads that we're making are flawless, and pucks are just hitting us and finding ways to make unbelievable saves. That is the flow state. That is like the ultimate goal for any high-level athlete when it comes to performing in games. So if you want to learn more about it, Michal, his last name is really hard to say, Csikszentmihalyi, I think is how you say it. He is the authority on flow state. So I highly recommend grabbing that book if you're interested. Okay. But again, I want to go back to the idea that, the title of this presentation is what is, the power of one. But what is that one thing? I haven't really named it yet. And again, usually when I'm giving this presentation, I leave a couple of minutes for goalies to try and guess, like, what is this one thing? Okay. But again, for time purposes, and since this is the first time I've ever given this presentation virtually, we'll go ahead and reveal the answer. Okay. And the answer is the power of one is finding ways to get just 1% better every day. Okay. And again, you've probably heard this phrase before, 1% better, but this is really the ultimate goal for any athlete. And you talk to an NHL goaltender, this is their goal. If they can get a 1% edge on all the other goalies out there, or they can go out on the ice one day, maybe even if they're not feeling great or they're coming off a tough loss, if they can find a way to get 1% better, that's a huge edge. Okay. And that's always the goal. for any goalie at any age, any level, any position, coaching or otherwise, we all just want to find ways to get 1% better every day. Well, what are some of the ways that we do this? Obviously, you've got your pretty traditional, private lessons, and you've got your team practices, and you've got your off-ice training routine. But right now, we're dealing with the situation where we don't have those luxuries anymore, okay? So we've got to be creative, and we've got to find new ways to get 1% better. And right now, this is a defining moment for a lot of goalies' careers and their lives, okay? And it's crazy to think that we've had such a big change in just 1 week. But that's the reality that we're faced with right now. And again, it's easy to kind of look back and, kind of get caught in this spiral of negative thought where we look at all the things that we've lost. But what really makes a difference for you as an athlete right now and as a goalie right now is to stay positive and look forward. Eventually, our lives are going to get back to normal. Now, that normal might be a little bit different, but eventually we're going to get back to our routines of, training for the season and playing games and getting hyped for those big tournaments. And if we can take the time right now to stay positive and find creative ways to get 1% better, you're going to have such a great edge and so much more wisdom and so much more perspective when we all come out of this the other side. Okay. And that is the key right now, is we've got to find those ways. And goalie coaches are coming together and sharing ideas. Goalies themselves are doing it. We're finally starting to look outside of that goalie bubble and look at what other sports are doing. Like, what are football players and basketball players doing right now to get 1% better? Because we're all kind of in the same boat where we're isolated from our normal training routines and we're forced to be creative. Okay. And I just listed some ways that you can do it. And I'm sure most of you guys have already been leaning on these things for quite some time. But now it's even more important than ever. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to play a couple of videos that, again, obviously this may not be super relative because we don't have access to ice, and this is the concept of box control. For those of you that aren't familiar, box control is a really great, slow, stationary way of learning about angles and coverage, and depth and positioning using ropes that, visualize the shot path from any point on the ice. And what's great about box control right now is that this is something that you can do in your house. If you have any type of a net, okay, got to be creative. You got to find ways to maybe use some ropes that are laying around, or if you have dog leashes, you can use that, okay? And you can create like that virtual box, and you can work on box control from home. Okay, so I'm going to still play this video. Normally I would have taken it out, but I still think there's a lot of uses for you guys. And if you want to, toss some ideas my way or get some feedback on how you can create like a box control station at home, I'm more than happy to help you guys do that after this is over. But to kind of cue up this video, this goalie his name is Packy Munson. He just finished his second season in the ECHL, I believe. Good buddy of mine. He's attended both global goaltending retreats. Pretty interesting career. He's kind of traveled through a couple of different colleges, spent a year playing in the EIHL in the UK, and then came back to play minor league hockey in North America. And at this time, he was at the University of Denver, and he was a redshirt. So he wasn't able to practice with the team, but he was super creative with the time that he did have. So when he wasn't traveling with the team on the weekends and they would go on the road, he was super resourceful. He was super adaptable. And he would have me come out to the University of Denver where I play my beer league hockey. And he would just have me come out on the ice, and we took the Zamboni drivers, the guys that are wearing, the shoes, and we would do box control, just him and I. Okay. So here's that video. The only space available is about 1 inch above your glove.
But that's this and that's.
Or just, you don't gain that space. You don't cover that net by going up. You cover it by going out. Yeah. Yes. There you go. So go back to where you would normally hold it.
Yeah. So
okay.
ACP like right above the glove.
So instead of thinking about raising it, because when you lift your glove straight up, what happens? You create space underneath the cuff of the glove and the top of the pad. But if you come forward, you cover both. And that's what happens. Goalies create holes because they think they have to go straight up. But you don't. You just have to go out and take away the aerial angle.
Yeah, so I just go over. over the puck like here?
Yeah, he's got everything. There's absolutely no space available. But do you see how short side is taller?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard the very last thing he said. He said at the very end of it, "That's crazy." And that was a big moment for me because you can really see the learning that's taking place in Packy's mind when he starts to realize short side is taller and the way that he's covering space can be adjusted just a little bit. And this was a great creative learning moment for Packy and I. Yeah, it's a very different type of training. It's much slower and it's more about learning and discussing and, looking at your coverage using an iPad. But this was a creative outlet for Packy and it really helped him because, again, he wasn't able to train with his team during normal practices and he wasn't able to travel with DU as well. So I gave so much credit to Packy for being creative and being resourceful and taking advantage of what he had around him to continue that learning process. And he definitely got 1% better, not because of anything I did, but because he took it upon himself to find ways to keep learning. Okay. And that's why I wanted to continue to share this clip. Okay. Now this one obviously is focused on work on the ice, but I wanted to share, these are drills from the NHL goalie camp that I attended in Madison, Wisconsin, between the years of 2014 and 2018. And back in like 2014, 2015, adaptive skating was just becoming pretty widely regarded around the goalie world. And adaptive skating is just really like teaching goalies how to get uncomfortable on their edges so that they become more comfortable adaptively skating and getting back into position in a game. So you would start to see a lot of goalies doing these drills where they're like hopping on one edge and doing a lot of these backward flow skating drills. And I just wanted to show goalies here that like even NHL goalies are challenging their edges. And this is great creativity. That's Brian Elliott when he was still with the Blues. Michael Hutchison in the background. Okay. These goalies had never done anything like this before. And you can imagine some of them were like, what the heck are we doing? Okay. And that was on day one. But by the end of day 5 of this camp, they all loved it to the point where I had Michael Hutchison come up to me and say, man, what these coaches taught me is unreal. I'm going to be doing this every day with the Jets when he was still with the Winnipeg Jets. Okay. And now that he's with the Colorado Avalanche, I can tell you he's still doing a lot of these, what you would maybe consider funky looking drills. Like these are legitimate. These really challenge your edges. And it's a creative way to help you get a better feel for your edges when you're actually in a game. Okay. Here's another really creative drill that we came up with in Madison. This was a few years later. So I think this one was in, I want to say 2017, because I see Brian Elliott's got his he's got his Flyers pads on, and this is Scott Darling, and this is Andrew Hammond. So I think this is 2017, okay? And again, the first time the goalies went through this, they were kind of like, what the heck? But because they were open-minded and they were adaptable and they understand the importance of trying out creative drills, this one really stuck and we did it every day. Nice.
One guy at a time.
Okay, so the cool thing about this drill is the space between this post and this post is 6 feet. So it's 6 feet across. And then the space between this post and this post on the same parallel angle is also 6 feet. Okay, so it's just a creative drill we tried. We weren't afraid to try it. It was in a pretty private environment. You can see there's no one in the stands, and the goalies loved it. Okay, whoops. Okay, and one more drill I wanted to show you guys, one more, like example of creativity in the moment is this one right here. This is Kristers Godlevskis, who was with the Syracuse Crunch organization. And what had happened was the starting goalie, who I think was Andrei Vasilevsky at the time, came down with the flu like pretty last minute. And the Syracuse Crunch were on the road. So they didn't have access to all of their, normal training, training tools or their own facility. They were on the road, and Christers literally found out maybe 30 minutes before puck drop that he was starting. So he didn't have his normal starters routine, but what he did is he went with his goalie coach, Dave Alexander, found a crappy net that was laying in the bowels of the rink, found this jumping pad, and got his eyes warmed up in a creative way. Okay, so this is all they had access to at the time. But instead of just saying, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to warm up my eyes, I'm just going to go out there and hope things work out. Like, he took control of the situation. They collaborated. They were creative together. They found a way. He went out and had a really good game. Okay. Another way goalies can be creative right now while we're sitting at home, you know, trying to stay busy, is to do what I call a game map. Okay. And this is like strategical positioning. So this is really just mapping out your positioning when the puck's anywhere on the ice. And you can also, like, I've heard this called zone mapping before, where you create your own zones. Okay. And I just showed you an example of mine. So this is actually what I currently use for my positional strategies. Okay. And this is a great way, like, you can do this with goalies. You can do it with your parents. You can do it with your coach and email it back and forth. But this is a great way to really take some time to sit there and think about how you actually position yourself when the puck is in certain spots on the ice and when certain plays are developing. Okay. So just being able to draw it out is really important. So you can start to reflect on, like, wow, yeah, this is actually what I'm doing in this situation, or this is why I do this certain thing. This is why I'm a little bit more aggressive when the puck is in close, or a little bit more, you know, reserved or economic with my positioning in these certain areas. It can lead to a lot of great discussion as well. Okay. So I highly recommend goalies do a zone map. Okay. Map out your game plan and share it with your goalie coach, because it's great for the goalie coach as well. It gives unbelievable feedback, and it's a way to, you know, continue that learning process as time goes on. Okay. I've got about 20 minutes. So again, I'm going to try and go through this next step fairly quickly, but there's a few more videos and then a few exercises I wanted to share as well. And one of the keys, one of the skills that I'm really starting to work on with goalies is moving beyond just vision training, okay, and teaching goalies about visual intelligence, okay? And there's an unbelievable book that I reference for this that I'm going to share here on screen, if you can see it. It's called Visual Intelligence, okay, by Amy Herman. And we're going to watch a short, like, 3-minute video where it kind of gives you a great overview of this book, okay? And the title is Visual Intelligence, Sharpen Your Perception, Change Your Life, okay? So what is visual intelligence? Visual intelligence is moving just beyond what your eyes see, but it's thinking about what your brain actually perceives when you're in the crease. So perception is how you actually process and analyze the information you gather when you're reading a play. Okay, 2-on-1, 3-on-0, God forbid, PK. Okay, vision is actually like just the physical act of seeing. Okay, so vision training focuses on the physical act of seeing, whether it's, you know, using the X tracker to isolate your peripheral vision and really help with head trajectory and puck focus. But visual intelligence aims to improve the way you actually read and react to the game and in other areas of life as well. Okay. So again, like vision training, that's when we're talking about the X tracker. Okay. A lot of the light-based training that we see. Okay. And if you want to know where vision training is going and how it's starting to kind of tie in with this idea of visual intelligence, I'm going to share this clip from you from Sweden. Oh, let's see. See if I can full screen this.
My name is William Ram. I'm the goalie coach of HV71 from Sweden, and we play in the SHL. What you see in a top-level goalie is how they use their eyes, their vision, to track pucks and to scan and read the game. The biggest challenge as a coach often is to have the same picture as the player of what's happening out on the ice. eye tracking, for an example, is a way to almost get inside their brain and see what they're thinking. With all training, you have to invest the hours and invest the work before you get proficient at any skill. Eye tracking is a great tool to shorten the learning curve. The game of ice hockey is a very, very fast game, and what a goalie is doing out on the ice is often subconscious. So after our feedback session, we could actually find proof for a lot of these subconscious behaviors going on. And that helps us a lot to have the same picture, what we're talking about, what we want to develop, even on the smallest detail. I could, in real time, follow my athlete and see what he was doing out on the ice. Very interesting and a good tool for direct feedback. I believe eye tracking could be used in any area or any field, either cognitive skills or actual visual skills.
Okay, so that's, again, just some of the new technology that's coming out that's making this idea of not just vision training more effective and more relevant, but visual intelligence. Like, whoop, I forgot to stop. Bear with me 1 second. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, so again, going back to that, again, so it's just the concept that now we're starting to lean on new technology to help us understand how goalies are seeing the puck and where they're actually looking, and being able to take that data and review it with goalies is moving beyond just regular vision training, and it's really starting to flex our creative understanding of visual intelligence. Okay, so visual intelligence, don't let your eyes outsmart your brain. This is another video, and this is from Amy Herman, who wrote this unbelievable book that I suggest all goalies and goalie coaches get. Again, you can get it on Amazon. So I'm going to play this video. This one's about 3 minutes long, and we're still doing good on time.
We were just attacked. That's right. About 4 a.m., the printing press of our Hong Kong edition was visited by...
There we go. Ads are the worst.
Visual intelligence is the concept that we see more than we can process. And it's the idea of thinking about what we see in the information and what do we really need to live our lives more purposefully and do our jobs more effectively. I work across the professional spectrum. So I work with police officers and intelligence analysts and doctors and nurses and librarians. But what's interesting for me is that the 4 A's are applicable to all of them. And what they are is any new situation, any new problem, any new client, any new transaction, any new environment that you're in, you practice 4 A's. The first one is you assess your situation. What do I have in front of me? What information is here? I want people to go beyond the 4 corners of what they think they see. So this is what's in front of me. This is where I am. Ask someone. This is my situation. Here's where I am. This is what I see. Is there something here I might be missing? Because by asking someone else, we realize that no two people see anything the same way. So, of course, that doesn't work all the time, but if you're in an office situation, if you're in a medical situation, and you have the opportunity to collaborate, you'll get the biggest picture of your assessment if you ask other people what they see as well. The second step is to analyze the information. That's where you break it down and you say, what's important? What do I need to prioritize? What's most important? And what don't I really have to worry about at all? I find that when you make a mental list in your head, okay, here's my situation, and you divide it into 2 categories, information I need, information I might need, and information I definitely don't need. And for the information that you definitely don't need, put it away. Because our brains are so cluttered with so much information that if you can, from the outset, get rid of some information, do it. But keep that middle category, information that you might need, because you might have to draw on it when you don't realize that it's important. It could become more important as the process goes on. And then the third A, I think, is actually the most important. It's how you articulate what you observe. Whether you send an email, whether you pick up the phone, whether you tell a colleague, whether you write it down, the idea of putting into words what your observations are is the most important, because I tell all my groups, I don't know why this is, but something gets lost from here to here to here. Our brains and our eyes see something, but when it comes to articulating those observations, whether it's poor choice of words or an inability to communicate effectively, there's a real loss that I'm trying to redress. I ask people to be mindful of every word. Every word counts. And an example that I can give you that I give in the book was the investigation of the murder of Chandra Levy in Washington, D.C. back in 2001. When the instruction was given to look for her body, the instruction...
Okay, I'm actually going to stop there just for time purposes, but I think it gets the point, Amy gets the point across, and I know she didn't get to the fourth one, but again, for time purposes, she got to the points that were most important to me, which was, being able to articulate, again, is a creative skill, like being able as a goaltender to communicate to your coach or your teammates what you're seeing when a play is unfolding is an extremely important skill. And communication in general is important for goaltenders, goalies that can verbalize and vocalize, where the puck is, where the threats are at, how much time a defenseman has to carry the puck. All those cues are extremely important, and it also shows a little bit of leadership capability as well. So highly recommend goalies being able to communicate with your defensemen, have those conversations, talk about defensive structures, talk about guys that are getting good looks at shots. And that's a creative skill, and being able to articulate that properly so that everyone understands you is really important, because again, what Amy is saying when it comes to visual intelligence, everything sees things differently. Okay. And that means they're going to kind of like talk about it a little bit differently, and being able to find that common ground and share that empathy is extremely important, and a way that goalies need to be creative. Okay. So I've got a few minutes left. Usually this goes about another 10 minutes, and we play a little bit of challenge. Okay. And just because there's like 60 of you guys in here, I don't want it to get too chaotic. So I'm still going to keep everything muted for now. Okay. But this is just like a couple of examples that you can, take with your goalies and just challenge your visual intelligence a little bit. Can you name this hidden person? This one's pretty. Albert Einstein says this kid right here. Wait, hold on. I'll try and unmute you real quick. Let's see if I can do it. Unmute. Oh, sorry, I couldn't do it, bud. But you were right. It's Albert Einstein. Okay. Let me go back. Okay, Albert Einstein. All right. As quickly as possible, just at home, what do you guys see?
A lady.
A what?
A lady.
A ring?
A lady.
A lady. Okay. I don't see a lady. What do you see, bud?
A cow.
A cow? Okay. So we've got a lady and a cow. Those are two very different things, but you guys are looking at the exact same photo. Anyone else that can unmute themselves want to take a guess?
A cat.
A cat? Okay, so now we've got a cat, a cow, and a lady.
I think it's a cow too.
Looks like a cloud.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe cloud, maybe cloud.
I think it's a mouse.
Is it a pig?
Oh, wait, now I see the lady,
Maybe it's a
Yeah.
I think it's a moose without a face.
It's a cow for sure.
I have no clue anymore.
All right.
It looks like a pig still. Yeah, it is a cow or a lady. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thanks for all the answers. It is in fact a cow.
Yay.
Okay. Good job, buddy. This is always a great exercise because, again, we're all looking at the same exact picture, but this is a great example of visual intelligence. A lot of people see different things, but it is, in fact, a cow. I don't know if my mouse – okay, can you guys still see the picture?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to show you where the cow is. Okay? So here's the cow's nose. This is the cow's face. Here's an ear.
Still doesn't look like a cow. That was an ear? What?
Wait,
That's
what?
here.
Is this like a close-up picture of the cow's face?
It's the whole.
It
Here's
doesn't
the
look like it.
What are you doing?
I see it. I see it.
Yeah, I can't really tell it's a cow.
I can slightly resemble it, but I don't get it.
Yeah, I see the cow now.
I see the
cow, but I don't see
its ears.
Okay, real quick. The nose is here.
Right.
This is the body. The body is white. This is the body. Here's an ear, a black ear, and a black ear. Here's
Where are the eyes?
There's the eye. There's the nose.
I feel like if the head was like more like 15 ahead, it would look like a cow.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna ask you guys to mute yourself. Please.
Okay.
Thanks. I can't pull up. Okay, I got it. Okay, thanks, guys. So that's just one example, as you can see, of visual intelligence. Whoops. Okay. Here's another one. I'm going to keep everyone muted for now just because we've got like 3 minutes and I still have a few more slides. And then I'll open it up for questions. How many horses do you see? Okay. I'll leave this up for a little bit. Some people count the legs to try and get the answer. Some people are looking at faces. Okay, but how many horses do you see? I'll try and pull up the chat room. Lots of people are saying 5. That's it. 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, good stuff. I think that's it. Let me see. Okay, one more video. This is a 2-minute video. This one's really fun. Okay, the deception of Austin Matthews. So for goaltenders, like at the highest levels, and I have a lot of conversations with the Avalanche goalies here in Colorado. A lot of the goalies at the highest levels don't fear stopping the puck. They fear not seeing it, okay? Because if you see the puck, you're going to stop it at that level. And that's how we are for most goalies. Like if we see the puck cleanly, we get a good look at the release, it's pretty easy to get into position, all things being equal, okay? What really scares goalies at the highest levels is not seeing the release. Because you can't always stop what you can't see. And guys are so deceptive now that goalies have to get better at reading like the subtle little visual cues that you get as the stick is interacting with the puck before the puck actually comes off the stick blade. So that important time when the stick is about to make contact with the puck and come off the stick blade, we call that the quiet eye, okay? And the quiet eye is just your ability to settle and rest your gaze on that moment so that you can actually anticipate and read the release cleanly, okay? So I'm going to watch this video. I'm going to do my best to pause it. And what we're supposed to do here, it's a challenge, is I want you guys to tell me if the shot is going short side or far side, okay? Here we go. Bear with me real quick. I know we're going a few minutes over, but this is fun. And it's a good one for everyone. Let's see.
Does he go short side or far side? Short side or far side?
Whoops. Okay, full screen. So again, short side or far side?
Deception of Matthews, play him up at home. October 11th. He's going
Far side.
Far side.
Okay.
Short side.
Short side. Short side.
Far side.
short side.
Far side. Far side.
Exactly.
Short side.
Short side. That's short side.
Oh, dang.
You know, I thought he kind of opened up his mouth. Okay, April 2nd, Buffalo.
Okay, that's far
This
side.
looks
That's far
going far side.
Far side.
Our side.
Far side.
Yeah, it's definitely far side.
Side.
I feel like you can tell me where the fuck is on his blade.
Lots of far. I hear lots of far side. Here we go. Ready?
Far side.
Wait, short
One
side.
isn't quite as open.
Short side, that will be triggered.
Oh, short side.
What?
All right, 1-1.
Austin Matthews, guys. Austin Matthews.
Where's he seeing? That's far. No, short side. This price has an open strong on the short side. Short side.
It's goalie side.
Aside from this challenge, this is a great conversation to talk about Carey Price's depth and positioning in the net too. We'll save that for another conversation.
I think he's this inside.
Short side.
Short side.
Just by the way, Price is standing. It's
Short side.
Dog kill. One more for the victory.
What?
All the time I don't say far side.
It was 2017. This one, I think I'm going to
See.
get it right. Do you remember this one? I think you went far side.
That's short side.
Far side. Far side.
Short side. He's gonna pull some.
That's the only one that I had a bit of an idea. October 6, 2016. Okay,
Far side. Far side. Far
Far
side.
side.
Far side.
Short side.
Far. I feel like short's on the heel and far is on the toe.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
Wouldn't that be that?
go short side.
Come on. It's far.
Yeah, that's short.
What?
Why?
No, bro.
Not short.
Just take time.
Does that mean far side's on the heel or is this
Dead on, and so your eyes would see differently than this. So I did have just a couple.
And that's okay, guys. Mute yourself again, please. Thanks. Appreciate it. And Kelly Rudy just said something really interesting. He said, I'm used to seeing it dead on from the goalie's perspective. But another thing to understand is that this is why empathy is another important skill for goalies to have. You have to understand that everyone sees things differently. What you see down the barrel of a loaded gun with Austin Matthews is totally different than what your coach is going to see, what the defensemen in front of you are going to see when they're probably trying to get out of the way, and what, scouts in the stands see. So you have to understand that your perspective is pretty unique as a goaltender. And it's important when you have discussions after the game, when you're breaking down video or you're having discussions about why goals went in, to just understand that maybe your coach saw it a little bit differently. So what he or she considers a soft goal, more often than not, it's not a soft goal. It's like maybe the puck fluttered or maybe it tipped off a defenseman's stick, but you just have to understand and be respectful and know that like your coach's perspective is totally different than what you're seeing. Okay. So that's important to note. Okay, I think that's.
So I was playing along quietly,
Yes.
but I was pretty much on, and it's the left skate that opens up on the short side. Now, you don't buy that, do you?
I don't, only because a goalie doesn't have time to look at the feet. I know, Ron, you've told me Jacques Plante did that, which blew me away because I've never heard of a goalie looking at the guy's skates. But, if you do have a quick glance, maybe it would tell you something.
He uses a really short stick, Austin Matthews, and he likes to have his hand.
Okay, so again, another really interesting point is, and then at this point, the presentation is over and we start to talk about, what do you guys look at individually? Like, are you looking at feet? Because when I'm out there, I'm not looking at feet. I'm trying to look at wrists and hands and stick blade, obviously.
I'm looking at blade and eyes. I look at their eyes and the blade because they're normally looking where they want to shoot.
Yep.
I look at their shoulders.
Shoulders, okay, good.
Shoulders are going too. That's good.
I look at where his head is looking. Where he's looking.
Oh God! Why would you do that?
All right, and can you guys put yourselves again?
Shoulders, because then you can know when they're shooting.
We will all mute just so we can wrap this up. All right, thanks, guys. So again, everyone sees things differently. Everyone has different tactics and approaches. There's no one right way. You be creative, make yourself unique, come up with different ways that you can gain information on shot releases. Because again, at the NHL level, goalies don't fear stopping the puck. They fear not seeing it. And that's why you see goalies do such a good job battling in traffic, trying to find the release, trying to find and get their eyes on the visual information that's going to help them read that release, even if they don't see it cleanly. Okay. So a couple of more things, and to all you guys that are posting stuff in the chat room, that's awesome. Thanks. I know there's a lot of us in here, which is great to see, but if you want to give feedback or answer, use the chat room and you can see everyone else's answers as well. And I see a lot of like looking at the head, eyes, blade, and chest. That's a good one. Awesome. All that feedback is great. And you can just see how everyone's got kind of a different approach. Okay. Now, the next step, I know we're 5 minutes over. Okay. But I wanted to show a few things that I'm working on at MindSpark Learning in terms of visual intelligence. And a lot of it is VR training. Okay. And VR training is amazing because you don't have to be on the ice to work your eyes. Okay. And there's a lot of really cool brain endurance training that you can do with a VR headset.
So once he gets past stage 12, that's when the real brain training starts. And that's when we start dual tasking, where you have to follow 2, 3, 4, or even 5 pucks simultaneously while you're also dealing with mascots popping up. You got to decide whether it's yours or the opponent's, and make different decisions based on that. So you start to mentally juggle, basically. And
so what he said was
build that up
mentally juggling, because you're being asked to track multiple objects at the same time.
Because they're tracking 4 pucks while they're also dealing with this other thing that's going on until something else. And it looks like, how can somebody possibly do all that?
So again, a creative way you can train your visual intelligence and your cognitive flexibility. I know not a lot of people have the ability to bring in a VR headset, but the great thing is that, so the Oculus Quest is kind of like a PS4. It's like a $399, $400 product, but the Oculus Go is $199. And those are pretty readily available on Amazon and Best Buy. So there's like your high-end model, and then there's also VR headsets where you can do some great cognitive flexibility training that's more affordable. But as time goes on, just like all new technology, it will become more accessible. Okay, and maybe you guys have heard of Sense Arena. So Sense Arena is a company that's partly owned by David Pasternak of the Boston Bruins. And Sense Arena is legit VR training where you're on synthetic ice. You can see, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but on the lower shaft of his stick, you can see a sensor, okay, right about where the kick point is. And then obviously he's wearing a headset, okay? And then the guy in the back behind that little stand over there is got all the computer connected, okay? And it's gathering all the data that I don't think that's David Pasternak. It might be another player from the Czech Republic. Okay, and he's going through simulations. So he's getting a lot of reps in on synthetic ice, okay? And Sense Arena is this company that's really, really growing, great technology behind the product. They're pretty much the pioneers for like legitimate VR training for hockey players. They don't have a goalie yet, but they will in the future, or at least I hope so. They'll have a goalie module where you'll get to wear a VR headset and actually simulate being in the crease. And you'll be able to simulate releases, simulate shots without having to, put a lot of wear and tear on your body. So that's it, everyone. I really appreciate you, sticking around. I know this went a little bit over time. It's great to see so many of you in here. And now I just wanted to open it up for questions. But what I'm going to ask is if you guys can just stay muted. And then if you do have a question, you can either type it in the chat room or just unmute yourself, ask your question, and then remute yourself just so I can answer him cleanly. All right? So let me pull up the chat room here. Yeah, I wish that was Yager. And if you don't have any questions, you guys are free to go. Hopefully you learned something. And let's be creative during this time because it's a tough time for everyone, but our creativity, which is now a skill you guys can lean on, is going to help us get through this time. Okay?
I got a question.
So Reed is asking, how do I read shots? I mean, personally, my goal is to always just get my eyes on the space before the puck is actually being released. So I'm looking a lot at the stick blade, and I'm trying to gather information on the wrists because I feel like the shooter's wrist is going to give you a lot of information about where that puck might be going. So I'm looking at stick blade, and I'm looking at wrist as much as possible. And then if I have time, I'll glance up or I'll try and rely on my peripheral vision to look at the body, the upper body and shoulders and head. Okay.
I've got a
It also
question.
depends on the location of the puck. So if the puck is further out, so if we're talking like just inside the blue line, I'm not overly puck focused. Okay. So I rely on just my instincts, but I'm also aware of the lateral threats. I try not to get too puck focused because you don't want to miss out on all the key information around you. Okay. Because a lot of guys are very deceptive. It'll look like that puck's going on net, but maybe it's going 2 feet wide to a guy that's on the doorstep. And if you're not aware of that guy on the doorstep, okay, it's going to make you look pretty bad. So you don't want to get overly puck focused to the point where you forget about the rest of the play that's developing around you. I feel like when the puck is in tight, that's when you get your head over your body and really focus on tracking just the puck and trying to get as much information as you can on that stick play. Okay? What's your opinion on the vector ball precision training? Huge fan of it. Okay. All right.
I've got a question.
Okay, go for it.
What would you prefer, or what would you do before the game, like stretching wise, off ice?
Yeah, off ice, honestly, for me, what I do is I try and get to the rink about 45 minutes before my game. And then I love to ride the bike. I feel like riding a bike is really good for me, 10 or 15 minutes. Not very hard, but that's what gets my blood flowing. And it also gets the oxygen going through my body a lot better than maybe just like doing like static stretches. I try and do my static stretches really like right before I get my gear on. So I'll get to the rink, I'll have the headphones on, I'll be listening to some music, and then I like to ride the bike for 10 or 15 minutes because that really gets things going, okay? It loosens up the muscles. Again, I'm playing beer league hockey, so, you know, I don't have the luxury of long warm-up or anything like that. So I ride the bike, I do some static stretching, I get the pads on, and then I like to visualize, so I'm a big believer in visualization. I think that's a great way to get your mind primed if you're not going to see a lot of shots in warm-up or you don't have more than a few minutes. So I did with my gloves. Okay, I'm just visualizing like eye attachment to the puck. Same thing with the blocker, like visualizing the puck coming in and going out. Okay, and I really just try and get the eyes going. And then a little bit of tennis balls against the wall. I don't know how to juggle, but tennis balls against the wall are easy. Okay, and I try and balance it left and right side. I don't just do my dominant glove side. Like I try and do my blocker side as well, even though I'm not catching with that hand. It's good to work both sides of the brain equally as possible. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, is it okay to stay fully out of the crease?
Do you mean like just when you're facing shots?
Yeah.
Like being aggressive?
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to, you know, read the play. You have to make sure that you're, you know, not giving up too much behind you, right? So you want to stay as square to the puck as possible, but there's nothing wrong with being aggressive, okay? Like the most important thing to know is that every shot is different. Every situation is different. And if you feel like you're square to the puck and you're taking up as much net as possible, okay, there's nothing wrong with taking an extra step or two out. Right? If you feel confident in your skating ability, okay, and you feel like you've got to retreat back to your post because you give up a rebound or there's a second opportunity, you can be aggressive as long as you know that you can get back to your posts.
Okay, thanks.
All right?
I have a question.
Okay.
How do you usually train yourself and prepare mentally?
So I'm a big believer in like mindfulness, which is just a little bit of meditation. I'm really connected with nature. So I spend a lot of time walking, taking hikes with my dog, just being peaceful in nature, being alone with my thoughts. But for a more tactical answer to that, I think visualization is the best thing that you can possibly do. So just sitting back, whether you've got your gloves on or not, or you're at the rink, just imagine yourself making big saves. Like that's one of the best ways that I prepare for a game. I'm always thinking about really challenging shots. So I'm thinking about plays where I have to be a little bit desperate, maybe make a big diving save or a big windmill save where I'm on the goal line. And just imagining yourself making good saves and being aware and positionally sound and relaxed is really important. If you can imagine yourself being like calm and in control and relaxed, that emotional stability is going to parlay over into the game. Okay? But if you allow yourself to be nervous or anxious before the game and you're worried about maybe giving up a couple of goals or you're worried about, playing a bad game, that's going to impact your performance when the game actually happens. So my goal, for me at least, is to always maintain a positive mindset and imagine that I'm going to have a good game. Be confident that I've prepared and I've done the right things. Like, I'm confident that I've gotten enough sleep the night before. I'm confident that I'm well hydrated. And so once those things take care of itself, it's easier to be prepared and know that I'm going to go out and have a good game. It may not always work out that way, but I can control my thoughts enough to know that I'm going to go out and do the best I can to stop every puck. Okay? So visualization, lean on that because that's something you can control, and you can do it no matter what environment you're in. Whether you're at the rink or you're in that chair right there at home, you can still visualize and you can still imagine yourself making big saves. Okay? That's something I'm leaning on right now. I haven't been on the ice in almost 10 days. Okay? So I am just trying to imagine myself what it's going to be like and how great it's going to feel when I'm back on the ice. Okay? And those are the good thoughts we want right now, because that's going to allow us to remain relaxed and in control and positive. All right?
All right. How do you train yourself to forget about things that bother you?
Well, for me, I just understand that I'm not perfect. Okay? Pucks are going to go in. Goaltending is a very difficult and demanding position. And I know that even sometimes when I try my best, pucks are still going to go in. Okay? So when a puck goes in, you know what? I'm a lot older than you. I've been playing for 25 years. I've been through it so many times. I've played in games where I've given up 10, 11 goals. And it's going to happen. You're going to have bad games. But just because you have a bad game or you make a mistake does not mean there's something wrong with you. Okay? So that's how I bounce back. I do a lot of the same things Braden Holtby does. I splash water on my face, okay? And just move past it and focus on the next shot, okay? Mistakes happen, okay? That's a part of life. We're not perfect. Pucks do weird things, okay? They don't go in perfectly straight lines, okay? But just because you give up a goal doesn't make you any less of a goaltender. So for me, it's just understanding that I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, okay? And I'm okay with that, because even the best goalies in the NHL give up bad goals, or they'll trip behind the net, or they'll look bad in certain situations. But everyone will understand. Everyone knows that goalies give up goals. Everyone knows that we make mistakes because we're expected to be so perfect all the time. The reality is that's not possible. So pucks are going to go in, okay? And you do one or two things while you're in the crease. You could spray water. You can skate to the boards. You can have some positive self-talk, so you can say something to yourself, okay? Like a lot of goalies write little messages on the inside of their blocker or their glove, okay? And always have one or two little tactics in your back pocket to help you just reset and refocus for the next shot, because that's really all that matters is the next shot, okay? And also, dude, buddy, check out the chat room, because there's some great goalie coaches in there giving some really good advice, okay?
Thanks for letting me know, and thank you.
No worries. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, there's a really good one from my good friend Luke, okay? Highly recommend reading that one. So there's a lot. Everyone in here is just trying to help, so everyone's got great tactics and ways to do these things.
Hey, Justin.
Yep.
I just want to say thank you for doing this.
No worries, buddy. I'll do more as time goes on. All right, guys. Anyone else? I'm going to go eat some lunch. But I appreciate you guys coming on. I know this is a tough time for everyone. But again, you learned a lot here, hopefully, about being creative. And again, if you didn't know what creativity was before this presentation, now you do. And because I was able to teach it to you, it becomes a skill, okay? And now that it's a skill, it's something you can work on at home. And everyone's got the capacity to be extremely creative. And the more creative goalies we have out there, the better we're all going to become. And we're going to continue to push back against those deceptive shooters that are doing some pretty crazy things with their sticks now. Okay? And again, I'm always available if you guys want to reach out. I'm available on Instagram. That's the best way to get in touch with me. I will drop my email in the chat room. And I will plan on doing some more of these as time goes on, since I'm working from home for the next 3 weeks. So anything you guys need, just reach out. I appreciate it, and you guys have a great day, okay?
We'll send them an email later.